Back in ancient times, in the 80s and 90s, mankind would gather in rooms set into the earth around a block of wood, which, with a click, roared alive with light and a great hiss. They'd cast an attunement to Channel 3, and with a great blow impart the breath of life into the machine. And then, magic. Games of light became alive and danced across these screens. They'd become warriors, beasts, and plumbers. Woohoo! But this story is not about the characters or the objectives. Ours is a story of the night sky. In these early worlds of light, the night sky was often a void, empty, nothing, or hidden away behind glowing clouds. But the evolution of these magic boxes came quickly. They cast aside their wooden casings, their roaring hisses, and their machine counterparts engaged in a relentless quest to give the players more detail and more powers. And so the night sky in these worlds evolved too. We began to see a small number of bright stars poke their way through the void and twinkle into life, and even start to weave into the characters' stories instead of just an afterthought lost to the background. And then came a stunning moment. The players entered 3D open worlds and gained the power to look in any direction. And with this, they gained the ability to look up. The sky was no longer the background, it was the all-encompassing space around them. With an entire sky to look at, and armed with a continual increase in processing power, these games began to fill that space with stars. In a matter of years, we went from blurry dots and giant moons to dozens or hundreds of stars, and maybe even the Milky Way. The night sky became something you could choose to look up at, and maybe even start to marvel at, but probably didn't because... We are now in an era where games can present skies that are so full of light and stars that they become stunning works of art in themselves. Can you imagine if we looked up at night and saw this? And here we come to the ultimate point of our story, which turns out features you as a character. As we look up at these beautiful night skies in modern games, we might see them as just as fantastical and mythical as giant walking buildings, robot animals, and all of the magical things of these worlds. But let me show you something. This star right here is Sirius. It's right next to the Orion constellation. And here's the Big Dipper. And it's not just constellations. Up here is the star cluster of the Pleiades. This smudge is the inconceivably far away Andromeda Galaxy. And this thick band are the countless stars that make up our own Milky Way galaxy. This isn't fantasy. This is our natural night sky. As you complete your quests under these skies, you could be forgiven for thinking these skies are fantastical, because you very likely never have seen the natural night sky. In our cities, we're living with an 80s video game version of our sky, like an Atari or NES sky. Out in the burbs, a Super Nintendo sky. Because of the sky glow from our own lights, a third of the world's population, 60% in Europe and 80% in the United States, can't even see the Milky Way. The majority of us on this planet have a sky like one being rendered by a decades-old video game console. You might think that if you live rurally or been camping or out in national parks, you've really seen the stars, and compared to the city, they are impressive, but you've still maybe only got like a PlayStation 3 or 4 based sky. Less than 20% of the entire world's population live under natural skies unimpeded by our own light pollution. So without significant effort and traveling hundreds of miles, you may never actually see the natural and pristine night sky in your entire life. By playing video games, we get to experience worlds and lives that we'd have no hope of otherwise having ourselves. But how messed up is it that just simply seeing the stars as they really are is also one of those fantasies?